What is up, everybody? It's your boy, Cody Cottle, back for another Motivation Everything show where I have been for the last 4 months, bringing on experts just like I have one with us tonight, interviewing them in front of all of you and just bringing a ton of value for free as much as we can to all of you. So we're back this week, and I have a guest with us by the name of Jeff Goering. So help me introduce Jeff. What I want you guys to do real quick is if you can hear me right now, I want to make sure the audio is working. I want you to drop a 1 below. If you can see me, I want you to drop a 2 below. And on top of that, I'm going to ask one more thing. I know I'm asking a lot. I'm going to ask you guys to drop where you're tuning in from right now. We want to know who's on here. We want to know where you're watching from. So drop a comment below while I introduce our very special guest tonight. Tonight, we are going to talk. We're taking the show. It's always evolving every single week. I'm always thinking, how do I make this better? How do I bring more value to all of you? So I've decided to turn it into not just an interview, but a show to make it more of an experience, more fun. So we have a topic we're talking about tonight, juggling life, showing up strong in business and for your family. And the guest I have tonight, there's none better than him to talk about it. Jeff went to Messiah College to study biology with thoughts of going into medicine. Where he began and where we find him today is just a little bit different. While in college, he met Robin, his bride of 27 years. They got married a month out of college. Not feeling the commitment needed to continue into additional schooling, he looked towards industry and got hired by a pharmaceutical company where he had interned. 6 months in, he got his first promotion and got a little bit of the advancement bug. I think we've all felt that before. He told Robin as long as he was happy and had a 5-year plan, he would continue as the gig did have some great prerequisites. In 2002, he was concerned of what the future would be in that organization. Through intense self-study, he found his way into real estate investing, and this sent him on a path of entrepreneurship. He now has 4 separate companies. He's been a full-time entrepreneur since August 2008, when he opened the doors to a brick and mortar real estate and financial training facility. While he has had his share of professional accomplishments, he would tell you his family is what makes all of his hard work worthwhile. Robin and him have 5 kids, 4 boys and a girl. Their family is comprised of children who are biological and adopted. Some of Jeff and Robin's favorite work has been creating 2 separate adoption ministries at churches they have attended. Other ways that Jeff gives back to the community is through coaching, wrestling, and lacrosse. Guys, help me welcome Mr. Jeff Goering. Jeff, we're so honored to have you, brother. Welcome to the Motivation Everything show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Cody, 3 of my kids either have or are working at Chick-fil-A, so I will just say that it's my pleasure to be here. And for those of you who aren't near a Chick-fil-A, you'll be all right, but find your way to one. Some good stuff.
It's quite an experience.
For sure. Actually, I always feel like if I'm having a bad day, I just need to go through the drive-through at Chick-fil-A and then everything will be all right. Thanks, Cody. It's awesome to get to speak to the crew here. It's a great group that you've assembled here, and I always enjoy hopping on and getting my 30-second motivation check, and it's good stuff. And I love
quick, I have to say, because I'm always about giving dues where they're due, Jeff Goering here, good friend of mine, is responsible for the check and the punch. He helped tell me I should do something unique at the end of it. So I got to give Jeff a little props there, always pushing me to be my best. And now everybody loves that. It catches their eye, and I never would have done it if it wasn't for you. But back to you, Jeff.
Well, shucks, do go on. Cody, I just want to kind of let this conversation go wherever it goes, because as you know, we always have a good time chopping it up. But as you were kind of reading through my bio, it was funny because I just was thinking, like, as I was listening to you read it, that I told my wife that I just as long as I could still see the next 5 years coming and that I was happy with what was going on in the corporate world, that I would just do that. And I can tell you that there was a couple mornings I would wake up. And when I say a couple, I mean like strung together across about a year and a half, where I would wake up and I would go, I was built for something more than this. And like, that's like not a good feeling as your first thought of the day. And
Right.
I was like bumming about the fact that I was just kind of grinding through. I was making good money. I had great perks, but it was like not really hitting the mark. And my wife is like kind of getting annoyed by me saying I was built for something more than this. And she's like, that's great. Do something about it. But the step to go to do that would be quite dramatic. And we can get more to that in a minute. But when I said that I didn't see a secure future, is a lot of people think that they have security in a job. And I'm not trying to talk anyone out of a job, but I felt less and less secure as the years went by, because as my salary went up and up, I felt like I was in a commodity. I was a commodity. And my joke was that when I looked around the pharma world, I didn't see a lot of gray hairs or no hairs, and you can see where I was headed. So it was like, let's come up with a different plan. So a lot of what we're doing today is really just because, thank goodness, I had the foresight years and years ago to realize that I had the ability and some of the skills to be able to do some things that I could kind of make my own rules in a sense. So,
Sure.
but it was, that's kind of the backstory. Like, there's lots of stuff, when you have 5 kids and you have multiple companies, there's lots of things that we could talk about. I think the one thing that when you and I talk that I find interesting is you were actually able to kind of come to that conclusion at a much younger age. I mean,
because I hang out with guys like you.
Well, perhaps, but my first flash and taste of that was, and I'm so grateful to that pharma company. Like, I don't have any negative feelings about them at all, because they gave me such amazing opportunities. And what was really cool about that company, I didn't mention this to you before, but like when I was an intern, they were on the front of Fortune magazine, like 6 years running as the company. So like, think of like whatever the company is of today, whether it's Tesla or Apple or whatever you want it to be. That's who they were back when I got out of college. Like, they were on the front of Fortune. They were the place to be. And you know what was crazy about that company was whatever you showed ability and drive towards, they would reward. So like when I told you I got promoted 6 months in, it was shocking to me, because when I first got there, they told me you're going to make this much money. And I was like, that's great. Like, it was great money back then for a guy my age. Right. And on day one of walking through the door, I saw this like little note over on this door, and it said like working extra time, or what you would call overtime. And I was like, I thought I was a salaried employee. And they're like, well, you are, but your pay grade, we pay overtime. And I was like, how does that nonsense work? And they're like, well, you just have to be fully trained, and then you qualify for overtime. I was like, how do you get trained? And they handed me this manual, and they said, you just have to sign off on all these SOPs. And here's me.
Right.
And Cody, I made in the first 5 months working in that company what they told me I was going to make for the year. And so that allowed Robin and me to buy our first house at 23. Like, when I was 23, I bought my first house. But even then, we talk about real estate a little bit. Even then, when I made my first purchase, I didn't listen to what everybody said. And I'd say if we only like take one thing out of our discussion today, like, I am such a proponent of independent thinking, and not just reading the headline, but looking into the story and then considering what the story actually means. Like, it's not just the headline. No, that's what everybody's doing right now. Read the headline, react. Read the headline, totally. React. Guys, we do that. We're hosed. Like if we don't think through some of these things a lot more deeply, it's really a problem.
Well, let's go one step further. We
Yeah.
don't just read the headline. Now we look at the comment our friend shared that's not even factual, and that's what we go with. I had to say that.
Right. Yeah. Which way are the sheep leaning? And let's go that direction. And look, what's interesting is a lot of people don't really think of themselves that way. But if you can't actually support your position of a topic, you're a sheep. That's just how it is. And you know me, I call it as I see it. I call myself the weatherman. The weatherman doesn't judge. He just says it's raining outside and we go, yep, it is. Now, all the stuff that he tries to predict, that's a joke. But the weatherman just calls it like he sees it. Well, today it's sunny, high of 80. Okay, great. But you have to go past the headline. And when I went to buy my first house, what do? You get a 30-year mortgage. Like that's what just everybody says. So here's something really interesting. There's lots of other mortgages out there, but they always just see a young guy come in and they just think, well, then you're just set up for a 30-year mortgage. Now, this isn't going to go where you think it is because it doesn't mean I was looking for a 15-year mortgage. I would never do that. I actually think they should be illegal, but that's a whole nother story. But I picked a different style of mortgage, which enabled me to have a much lower monthly payment.
More cash flow.
Yeah, cash flow. And cash flow is where it's always at. I mean, you know from talking to me before, there's two things that can keep you from ever having any kind of financial problems. Have adequate cash flow and have access to liquidity. I know so many people who are multimillionaires in real estate who, if push comes to shove, things would happen badly quickly because they have the cash flow, but if something happens not the way they're expecting, they don't necessarily have the liquidity to be able to defend their honor. So liquidity is always about defending your honor. Cash flow is about just making sure that the machine keeps running well. And if you have both, if one or the other isn't working at the time, you're fine for short periods of time. But if you don't have one or the other, sometimes short periods of time can happen like it's a big problem quickly. And I tell these things just because that's where I was. Like when I was 22, I told you I made a lot of money quickly and I bought my first house, but I also was a great saver. And some of that money went to places that were very illiquid. So I thought I was doing a great job saving. I thought I was doing a great job investing, only to come to find out that when things happened that I wasn't expecting, which they always will.
Right.
I couldn't always go put my hand on the dollar. And if you ever, I always say this to people, it's like, if you have never had liquidity problems, I couldn't explain to you how evil it is. But if you have had liquidity problems, we don't need to talk about it. Just come on over here.
So let's go back a little bit.
Yeah.
You were in a high paying position with a very established, well-known company. You had a great career path. You had what everyone from the outside looking in would have told you. You were successful, you were set, and you'd be crazy to walk away from it. Am I right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So why what was it that it take to go from that to being you have your own business now? You've been in business since 2008. For over a decade now, you've been running your own businesses. And I know a lot of what you've done, some incredible things, but it's interesting because a lot of people don't even have that want to start a business. Then there are people that do have that, but they still don't feel fulfillment in their life. Take us back to that moment. What did it take to make that transition? Dude, that's difficult.
Well, it is, that's actually a genius question because there's so many aspects of the answer to that I think are beneficial to anyone that would happen to be tuning in here. The first thing for me was, first of all, I play contact sports. I coach wrestling. I coach lacrosse. I like to mix it up. But on things like money, I like to play it rather safe, typically.
Sure.
So it does not make any sense why once I end up with my fifth kid and my wife is a stay near home mom. That's like a stay at home mom, except she was never home. It's stay near home mom. And look, I stepped away once there was already 6 dependents. I mean, that I would have never, when I was your age, I would have never dreamed that that could happen to me when I was like turning like 37, 38 years old. Like that just doesn't seem right. And it was a majorly bold step. But the reason that I did it was, number one, I really loved what I was setting out to do. And you hear people say that, like you and I know we like, let's talk about Gary Vee and stuff like that. And Gary's like big time into that, like just follow your passions or whatever. And I just liked what I was going to talk about so much that I was like, I just have to have a solid business model. And I was reasonably convinced that I had enough of a business model and enough of the right people around me that I could pull it off. And now you can't be halfway on that kind of stuff. Now, what's interesting is, you know that the whole story, which I'm not even sure is a true story, about burning the ships, burning the boats.
Yeah.
Well, I rarely burn the boats. I always have an escape plan for everything that I go to do. So even though, yes, what I did was seemingly from the outside as like crazy perhaps and whatever, the crazy part wasn't doing it. The crazy part was staying with it to see it through. Because it's not hard to step away. Actually, the company helped me make that decision. I didn't tell you this part, but I actually planned for them to pick me off. I knew they had some layoffs coming. In 2008, when I opened my company, I told them I'd need to go part-time. And they were like, what now? I said, well, yeah, it's really important to my family. And they were like, I don't know what you're up to, fella, but I got to have the full company car, the full computer, the full benefits. I just had half my salary, and I made it up on the financial side.
Right.
But then when the layoffs came along, they're like, I don't know what this guy's up to. Get him out of here. So part of it was strategic in that I knew that I could get a severance package being with the company for 15 years. So that was part of the escape plan. So you have, like, Cody, the most important thing that someone who's looking to move from like a W-2 job to do what you and I do is, there's smart ways to do it and there's insane ways to do it. Okay. Insane ways to do it are, and we know guys like this, I'm kind of maybe looking at you, jumping out of the plane, figured out how to put the parachute on the way down, and it works. You also don't have 6 dependents. So like you almost couldn't fail at what you were setting out to do, because even
if I did, there was nobody depending on me that I was going to hurt.
Right. And your belief in what you were setting out to do was bigger than any obstacle. And that's the second part for me. Like, I had major passion for what I wanted to do, and the obstacles that were going to come were tiny compared to what my vision was. If you have massive vision and you're passionate about it, I mean, unless you're like, you really dreamed up some sort of like bizarro business, that's a pretty good start to any business, to have passion behind it, and then just to have massive vision.
And here's the thing: if you pick something you love, you're gonna do it. I'm really big on, like, I got brilliant business ideas, a ton of them that would make a lot more money than what I do right now. You want to know why I don't do them? Because I wasn't passionate about it. It was something I would love doing. So when those tough times hit, you have to love what you do because you'll endure through it. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Well, absolutely. And I think that, like, there's certain things in life that you can't explain to somebody else. You just experience them. You go, wow, that would be hard to explain to somebody.
Right.
I mean, I will just tell you, becoming a father was like that for me. Becoming an adoptive father was totally different. And I couldn't explain either one. It's just amazing in both cases. But being able to run your own company and work for yourself, I mean, if you don't run a good company, you really just have a glorified job or a really poor hobby, so you got to make sure that it's running in a way that has profitability, because as much as there's passion and belief and vision and everything like that, if you don't have profitability, the criticisms are a lot harder to take. I mean, I will just tell you that people in my life wondered what the heck I was doing, because the reality was, even though I set myself up for the layoff, I had plenty of options in the industry still. I mean, like so many options, because I was
Right.
established and I was good at what I did.
Skill set, right? And I think that's important. I'm not going to sit here and say that I didn't spend almost 10 years in sales and know that I can go pick up a sales career any day of the week
Right.
and make good money. So I think it is important to have a skill set. I have a question for you. I did throw off for them to ask some questions. And Mike James says, do you think the vision follows the passion, or the passion follows the vision?
Hold on a second. I got a quarter around here somewhere. I think the more passionate you are about what you're setting out to do, it definitely fans the flame for the vision. I mean, I can tell you that the things that we do in our company are so I told you I have 4 companies that I run. There's 2 of them that I would say I like them, but I'm not passionate about them. They're just something that everyone needs. So it was just another revenue source for the company that I already owned. So it made sense to open those companies. And so I'm passionate about doing a good job in those companies, but like, people they can go buy some of that stuff elsewhere. It would be the same for every, no matter where you got it. On the financial side, I know what we do there, and it's intentionally different. And it's what I always wanted when I was in corporate life. I wanted good advice. I wanted good plans. I didn't want like hope strategies. That's why my company's called Go Plan, not Go Hope. Like a lot of the, I hope the market does well. I hope.
Hope's not a strategy.
Yeah. And so I just, but I have massive passion around what I do there, because it's not like a made up thing. Like, I know anyone that gets to work with our company has a different experience and will have different outcomes intentionally. Like that's intentionally what we do. So like my vision is like, oh my gosh, like I'd love just to help 1 million families, but like realistically, that's not what I like. I don't have that as a goal. I have a goal of like, I want to help the person sitting in front of me. And hopefully I can keep running a business which allows as many people to sit in front of me as possible, and I don't get tied into the minutia. So, but yeah, I think for me, I became passionate about the topics that I teach, because I was like, oh, there's some things here that no one knows, but they should know. And it just became kind of something that when you see it affecting people's lives in a positive way, it excites you. It's like what you do actually in your company, that there's so many people that really appreciate this community that, it's like you naturally are fired up and go get it. I mean, I know you, so I know that's how you're wired. But like when you hear positive feedback, like it just keeps the motor running, and like I said, the passion part of what you're setting out to do, it's like, if you're just like not that passionate about it, you're kind of hosed. You just are. Well, I mean, like, the way
I would like to throw in on that too. He asked like if the passion or the vision comes first, and in a way, the two are the one. I mean, they are different, right? Vision's being able to see something, before it happens, and passion is really the enjoyment you get and the love you have for doing it. Like, I would say a passion definitely comes first. Find something you're passionate about, then create vision around that passion for what that strategy and that plan to get there actually looks like, for sure. Like, I mean, but then it's interesting. I hear you say you're a guy that's farther along in life, far more successful than me, 4 companies. And I do think that one day, after taking my passion, turning it into a vision and creating monetary success, I could see me opening other companies to create additional streams of income, for sure. So it's kind of cool to see everybody's in their own season of life, what you've done with that. But you started, your core was your passion, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the other things that I was saying, it was like, I just got tired of, oh, go back to your professional and tell them to do this, because it was like, well, if I'm already telling you what they should be telling you, just pull up a chair and come do it with me. So like the one company is a property and casualty company. It's automobile and home insurance.
I know what that means.
It's not that, I don't know. I'm sure there's people that get super geeked out about car insurance. I don't know. I mean, I enjoy the commercials. So, but I don't, when I say I'm not passionate about, like, I want to, that's such a commoditized business. People are mostly just looking for price. But the part that I guess I am passionate about in that business is matching up like what their wealth is that they've created and how to protect that by having the appropriate coverages and liability coverage and stuff like that. So, but again, that's just not something that gets me up in the morning. What gets me up in the morning is like helping business owners create strategies and scenarios where their business, I mean, it sounds weird to say that it could never fail, because we've seen this year that obviously there's some things that are outside of our control that can be very punishing. But again, if our cash flows are strong and our liquidity is good, we can weather certain storms. And I've had clients that, if it wasn't for that philosophy, wouldn't have made it through 2020. And so the idea there is that I love people and I love helping people. So I could be a social worker, but I didn't think that would feed my family well enough. So I created a company which does support my family, but also helps people in massive ways. So my thing is around helping people. Like, that's just always my MO. That's what I love about coaching. I mean, my wife used to like wonder why I would go and go rumble with like high school kids that were stronger than me, and why like I would spend so much time in the cold and in the rain and lacrosse. She's like, why do you do this? And I took her one night to a Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We went to a banquet, and there was people talking about like how their coaches related to them and like how it made them as a person. And you know this because you've had some great mentors in your life. And my wife, like, we walked out of there, she's like, I finally get it. She's like, I know you like these sports, but she's like, you like love what you do with that. And I'm like, well, yeah, but it's because it's not about the sport. It's about having these young guys become great men. Like, that's what I love about it. So but that's the passion stuff, man. I don't get tired working in the space where I'm excited to be in. And so that's what I just encourage people. When you're going to run a business, like, it's too much work to not be passionate about what you do. Like, it just works.
What was it meant to, like, society has created such a conformity of way of thinking about work. Like, I just don't think it was always intended to be what it's become. And like, people, you might think it's woo-hoo to like talk about find your passion, make that your purpose, and create profit out of it. But I meet guys and I bring them on here and I interview them in front of all of you, like Jeff Goering, that did exactly that are much more fulfilled doing something they love every day. I'm much more fulfilled. I don't work. I haven't worked a day in my life since I started Motivation Everything, because I love what I do. Right. My days are longer. Let me tell you guys a little secret. My days are way longer than when I had a career or a job. But you know what? It's not work, because I love what I do. I get to do this. This is awesome. But hey, I got a question for you. I want to make sure I get to it. This is up your alley, boss. So, do you have any recommendations on who to build relationships within real estate, brokers, etc., prior to obtaining your real estate license on social media platforms, etc.? So Taylor's in my Motivation Everything club. She's about to get a real estate license, and she wants to know what kind of connections and advice you would give her for that niche in that industry.
Let's see. That's a good question. I would say that I'm probably not the person to ask for that, and you know what I'm about to say, because I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook or Instagram or any of those platforms, with the exception of on Facebook. I spend a ton of time in real estate groups. So spending time around any of the larger real estate groups is very interesting to hear what investors are talking about. But what you quickly realize, so I'll just take, there's a Facebook group out there called BRRR, BRRR, I'm not stuttering, Invest. It stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. It's actually started in Bigger Pockets. Most people will tell you go hang out around Bigger Pockets. I think Bigger Pockets is fine. They got a lot of great content. It's not necessarily like on any one particular platform, but Bigger Pockets is like a very popular real estate thing. One of my good buddies and also a client of mine did one of the pieces of content for Bigger Pockets. And so a lot of people that are trying to get started in real estate investing, I'll actually introduce to him just because he was an engineer and actually broke free and went as a full-time real estate investor, and just has such a solid platform for how he does investing. And I don't teach real estate investing. I teach how to make good decisions around acquiring the real estate. It's kind of like a different thing. So my buddy Paul and I, we kind of work back and forth there a little bit. But on TikTok, of all places, my kids mock me heavily. I still have not posted anything out there, much to Cody's chagrin. But I'm a hack for finding out the best recipes on TikTok, and there's some really interesting real estate content on TikTok. I like to look at some of the flippers just because I just think it's inspiring to see them take rat holes and turn them into like beautiful. I love seeing that. It's like so cool. So there's like a Tampa Bay Flippers. That's one of them. The Ryan Pineda show on YouTube, and then also he does a bunch of stuff on TikTok. Ryan Pineda is he's like a very impressive young man and really done some amazing things in real estate. And there's some others. Cody, I'll drop some stuff in the comments section here after we're done, just to kind of give some ideas. But the reason I said the BRRRR Invest group though was because there's about 20 to 30% of the people in there have never invested in real estate. They're just kicking tires. So you get to hear people's comments and thoughts around real estate. I just think you can get a real good vibe for how people buy and the kinds of things that people are interested in and what's important to them. And then, interestingly enough, I think that if you're becoming a real estate agent, getting really great mentorship, also making sure you get into the right system, because I see lots of systems out there. There's some that are good and some that are not so great. And then also understand that sometimes as a real estate agent, investing a few dollars to make your business really stand out might be really important. I think that that's a very commoditized industry as well. And right now, a lot of people are getting into it again, which what happens is people get into it when the markets are hot, and then there's a market crash, and then it separates the wheat from the chaff. So I would just say, have a long-term vision. Cody, one of the things when I onboard someone into my company, I have 10 keys to success that I give each one of them. One of the things that it says is plan to be here a year from now. But the joke about that is that I want you to think that 3 weeks from now, 3 months from now, because as soon as you see like a spot where you're going to quit, you're done. You're screwed. Like, so you have to always have this vision for what you're setting out to do. So when you're becoming a real estate agent, I think be super responsive. Number one, that like burns me up when I don't get callbacks from real estate agents. It's like, do you guys not want a paycheck? So be super responsive and just, again, think for yourself. There's so much, like, I can promise you every time I place an offer, the next thing that comes back to me is always what, Cody? It's something in the middle. It's like they meet me in the middle every time. Like, I've never put a real estate offer out where the counter offer was not meeting me in the middle. And that I will dominate that nonsense all day long.
Totally. Yeah, I'll add real quick to that, Taylor. And for anybody else that's watching this or watches the replay that's either in real estate or getting into real estate, one thing that I know, I spent some time in real estate, find out who's the best around you locally. COVID changes things a little bit. Get in proximity to them, learn from them, pick a broker that's high level and that you talk and manage expectations up front. You know, a lot of people think, like, I've always looked at jobs and careers, that they're not interviewing me, I'm interviewing them. And when I go in, and if you're looking for brokers, you almost want to interview the broker to make sure they're going to give you the wisdom and invest in you and show you the things you need to learn. So you want to get near somebody you can mentor under as a new agent to learn everything that they're doing to get the same results they're getting. And then join as many real estate groups locally here in Southwest Michigan that you can get in. Start seeing how they talk, how they act, the language they're using, the conversations they're having. And at first, you're just a fly in the wall observing, and eventually you feel confident enough to engage in the conversations, and through that you begin to learn. And then I would say get some resources, books, podcasts, things like that. And then obviously you got a cool coach that's going to push you a little bit too. So that's just some advice that I would give.
For sure. And Cody, to add to that, be looking for the people that you're talking to. Are we dealing with scarcity, or are we dealing with abundance? And be on point with that. And then further to that point, look for ways that broker invests in their team. Because typically those two go hand in hand. Like if you have someone that's very abundance mindset, and you'll also see that they invest in their teams. But someone who's kind of more scarcity, they're just trying to like Ebenezer Scrooge in their pocket.
I'd see, I mean, yeah. Don't even get me started on that. Find someone that's definitely abundant and willing to invest, because there's no way I would not stay in an office or work for anybody when I was young and hungry that would not invest in me. Because if they're not, you know, that's huge. All right, but let's keep it moving, Jeff, because, you know, juggling life, man. Like, Jeff, you're a guy who's done so much and continues to do so much. You're a father of 5. Your family's adopted kids. You've raised your own kids. You coach lacrosse teams. You're involved with the churches. You manage to form and keep relationships with people all over the world. How do you juggle? How do you juggle being such a phenomenal businessman and an incredible dad and husband and father? How do you do that?
So I was talking about like how companies invest back in you. One of the things that I am so grateful for my former company was I don't remember exactly how old I was. I was 23 or 24. I was not yet 25. I know that for sure. Somewhere in there, they put me into Covey training, and they spent we took I don't know, multiple days. So I'm getting paid to train like multiple days in a row on Covey training. And I don't remember a lot of it. I remember some of it. There's some stuff in there that was really, really cool. But the one thing that really changed my outlook on life forever was this idea of we have to know our roles. And you have to know which roles are important to you. And at the time, I won't list off all of them, but at the time I was like, I want to be a fantastic husband. Like, it wasn't like I just put everything under, I want to be a family guy. I want to be a fantastic husband. I want to be a fantastic dad. I want to be really good at my career, what I'm doing there. I want to be an outdoorsman. I want to be a speaker. Like, I actually listed out these different roles. And what Covey said on his time management stuff was, the more that you can combine roles, the more fulfilling your life will be. So for my family, when we go to do like a vacation, well, I always, especially as my kids got older, I always will take even though we're on vacation, I always take my wife out on a date on vacation. That's because we're somewhere else, and I want to have a special time with her. But I also want to give my kids fantastic experiences, but oftentimes I'll try to integrate that into an outdoor type scenario. So we went out to Arizona 2 years ago, and I'm like so spontaneous on certain thoughts. And then I get it in my head and I'm like, let's go do it. So I don't even know how I got this number, but I contacted some person out in southern Utah, And like literally, I didn't even know how this was set up, but like I knew I was doing a trail ride, and I knew it was going to probably just be my family. And what I didn't know, it was like 10 miles out past where you got cell phone connection, and you didn't meet them at a place, you met them like at a trailhead. And so my family thought I was like driving them out, to the middle of nowhere to kill them or something. And we get there, and there's like all these horses, and like it was just a 2-hour trail ride, thank God, because I was sore enough after just 2 hours of horseback riding. But it was just something that they weren't expecting. It was memorable, and it gave us something to be able to talk about later on. So like I try to create experiences for my kids in that sense. And so I say all that because when you have a family like the size that I have, you also have to be very intentional about the individual relationships inside of the family. Because for a while there, it was just like, here's all my kids. And it was just like so much work. You just the fact that I could stay awake when I was supposed to be awake was like a major feat. And just knowing where all the kids were was like a major feat. And then I started to realize, like, well, if all I do is just kind of like just tend the flock as opposed to like create relationships, I won't have what I'm trying to have here. And so like I'll take them out and just do something special. And it doesn't have to be that special. That's the cool part. Like my one son, I don't know what it is about him, but he and we like to just sneak off and do something that we know that his brothers would like to do. And we just take a picture of it, and then we sneak back. And then like 2 weeks later, he'll just show his brother the pictures, and they'll be like, what the crap? When did you go to get a burger with Dad? just stupid stuff like that. But the time management piece is I'm not actually my phone has made my life like so interesting, because if it's on here and it's on my calendar, it's definitely 100% happening. And my first priority is the only priority. Like whatever's on the calendar first, that's what happens. And I don't really go into all these gyrations of like, well, what if I did this? I don't suffer that. I'm like, look, I said I was going to do this. I'm a man of my word, so I go do this. Now,
my first priority is my only priority. I really like that.
Yeah, but it also means that if something I don't want to put on my calendar, then I have to actually be strong enough to say no. And so like I used to destroy my calendar with like a lot of like okay ideas. But
right.
One of the was also in Covey and this is not his, but the enemy of the best is the good. And so filling your calendar with a bunch of good stuff might actually prevent you from having the best stuff. And that's where I started to do some calendar blocking. And like I don't work on Sundays, period. You can't get on my calendar to work. I don't do work on Sundays. My family gets all of me. Now that might mean I'm sleeping on the sofa, but they get all of me. And there's definitely going to be some sad Eagles games involved. But I have time that they know is carved out. Like I didn't sit down to dinner with them tonight, which is a rare occurrence. But my family actually always knows that if for some reason I miss dinner, they're going to get me for like breakfast, lunch, and the next 10 dinners. Like it's life balance is not true. Like you can't have life balance. It's actually always out of balance. And the trick to what I said about juggling life is I kind of almost envision it like the spinning plates. It's like you don't have to be like my best friend from when I grew up, 8 years old, Dan. He and I are best friends all the way through to this day. When I think of him, I just shoot him a text. Occasionally, I'll shoot him a little Marco Polo and just be stupid. I just keep the relationships going, and I think people know that. I think people know that I check in with them, and I encourage everyone to do that more. Like people just generally don't do that. They don't think like when you think of someone that's really important to you, don't just have like a warm feeling in your belly. Shoot them a quick text message and tell them that you had a warm feeling in your belly. I think that's like the coolest thing you could do. It's like so honoring to the people that you love, and for me, if I've spent an hour with you in my life, you were part of my life. Hopefully it was a good hour. If it wasn't, I probably won't be spending any more time with you. But
I won't be getting any more messages.
But if it was a good hour, like we're going to definitely spend some more time chatting and having a good time. And I find that's what makes my life rich. Like what makes my life the most rich is quality relationships. And so in the time management piece, I do have some obligations occasionally that are not that desirable. I try to minimize that. Like I will tell you, like I used to sing a lot. I like sang at weddings, sang at funerals. I did a lot of singing. I sang in choirs. I I just don't do as much of that anymore because it was a lot of time away from my family. And I just like sat there and I looked at what do I care the most about? And I was like, hey, someday when all my kids are out of the house, if I still want to sing, they'll still let me in the choir. But when I'm older and I wish that my kids were sitting around talking to me, like I want them to actually have something to talk to me about and not be like, oh yeah, dad was out of the house all the time. And that does trouble me, Cody, for, you know, sometimes when I talked about like chasing the like the promotions and stuff like that in corporate America, dude, it breaks my heart when I'm working with clients that are in corporate America and I see what they're making and I know what kind of trading they're doing on their families. Like that's not okay with me. Like I can't do anything about it, but it actually bothers me because the reason I tell you this is for a quick story about when I was working at that company back in the day. I chose to work back shifts because I got paid 20% more. So I worked 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. as like a back shift scientist. It was like really whacked. But they needed someone to run the biological productions. And there was this vice president that would always like come in like around 3-4 o'clock in the morning to his office, which was weird. And I'm like, you know, trying to work my way through my shift. And he'd come in at 3-4 in the morning and I'd be like, hey, fella, I won't say his name. Hey, fella, what's going on? And he's like, I couldn't sleep. I had too much on my mind about this place. And I was like I always thought like, that sounds terrible. And the one morning, and Cody, this freaking rocked my world. The one morning is like 4 o'clock. He comes rolling through. I was just taking my lunch break or whatever you call it at that time of the morning. And he comes into my cubicle and he just starts talking to me. Now, when a vice president of the company starts talking to you, you just have to sit there and take it. And he wanted story time. And I'm like, okay. I'm like trying to stay awake. And he's telling me stories that were so lame. And then he goes to me, Jeff, you know what? I only have one really big regret in life. And I'm like, oh yeah? Partially interested. He goes, people would say that I'm successful, fishing for me to say, yes, of course you're successful. So I'm like, yeah, I see that. He says, do you know my only regret is I just didn't really spend enough time with my family. You know, I didn't always get to go on the family vacations. Like sometimes I'd be about ready to go on the family vacation and then I would get a call from the corporation and I just have to stay and take care of things. And then, you know, I never got to coach any of my kids' little league teams or anything like that because, you know, I just have these obligations here. I was like, dang, that's your only regret? That you just freaking sold out your family for your corporate life? How big of a miss is that? I was so freaked out by that conversation. I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to definitely not ever fall into those traps. And Cody, I turned down so many opportunities the last 5 years that I was in corporate life because I was like, people forget if you get a promotion, but it requires you're on the road more, or if you get a promotion and it requires like just more of you, you're getting paid less per hour. And I just looked at it like that. And I was like, you know what? I got all that I need. And then at a certain point, I was just like, and that I've had enough. But it's really wild, the concessions and the things that people will tell themselves. And sometimes you got to just look in the mirror and be honest. Just be honest about what you're trying to get out of life.
I think it comes down to what's important to you, right? I mean, that's the last thing in the world I'd want, to climb the corporate ladder, be quote unquote successful, but never, when I look back on my life, realized I didn't invest in my family and quality time. And it was interesting as you were talking about what you do in the individual relationships, the word investment came to mind for me we invest in relationships, time, energy, love, communication, and it's really cool how you've been able to you put that as a priority. You said, you know, what's your number one priority? You're going to make it happen, and you invest in people. And people are the greatest investment of all time that you can make aside from yourself. I always like to say that the first greatest investment we can make is in us. The second greatest investment we can make is in other people and our relationships with them. And, you know, Sean dropped on here calendar blocking. And do you ever do anything like that? And calendar, it sounds like with Sunday you do. Is that a tactic you use on the tactical side of things to have those priorities?
Yeah, as I'm prone to do, I accidentally interrupted myself. So that when I said that I used to get destroyed by doing all the good things, but then missing some of the great things, the calendar blocking is actually like a major deal. I mean, like especially the more I think when you're a leader of many people, but also in my case, like I've got a gazillion clients, so like I could just get picked apart. What's interesting though, I bet you that most of my clients, if they were listening in on this, would say, well, but Jeff's amazingly responsive. Well, why? Because I time block. Like, so I have time in my calendar every day where when the fire drills come up, that I can at least assess them. So for every one of my clients, if they have a question about their money, they don't want to wait around, but sometimes they're not urgent questions. So my first thing is always like, is this urgent? If it's yes, here's the whacked out thing. I always can fit you in every day if it's urgent, but you'd have to convince me that it's urgent. But if it's not urgent, I'll just tell you when I can get it done. And most people are totally cool with that. But yeah, time blocking is actually like, it's weird because I'm like so flow that it feels too rigid. Except for what's interesting is if you time block, that rigidness actually creates more like more freedom, and it's like a very, very good thing. So yeah, time blocking is definitely the jam. But I still really feel for me, it's about just being true to my roles. And actually over time I've changed what some of those roles are because I realize that they're not all as important as they used to be. So that's yeah.
And those priorities change over time. Family's obviously going to stay in the number one spot. Sean Spector said, do you block off times per day or days per week or a combination?
So I generally block per day, but I do also hard block occasionally the full day for certain purposes. So most of the summer I fully block Friday. Truth is I'm usually working Friday, but I don't want people just to be able to take pot shots at my calendar on Friday because my kids are off from school. We play hard in the summer. So I want to have the flexibility to be able to go have some additional time off. Coming off of vacation, it was very rare, but I had a reason why I did it this way. Normally, the first day back off of a holiday, I totally block out. I will not let anyone jump on it. I also block out a day following each month. That is actually just, it's a full day of what could I have done better the month before, and what sort of things do I want to do this coming month. It's like a total regroup, and I do 90-day planning, so it gives me a chance at 2 times during the 90-day plan to really have like a hard reset. So it's a mix, but I do like I have some times that are blocked out for my team in the morning and the afternoon, and I have when I kind of know, like for instance, I have a very big thing going on December 3rd. Well, it's December 1st and I don't have it done yet. So tomorrow, like unless someone quick jumps on my calendar, I'm going to be blocking out most of the rest of tomorrow just because I don't want to be stressed on like tomorrow night. Like I want to just take care of it in the day so that my family has me tomorrow night. Yeah.
Incredible, man. So as we're in the last top of the hour, the last 5 minutes. I have a couple questions that I want to ask you as we begin to close things out. And this first question is one that I really like to ask, that was asked to me a long time ago, that really made me think, and I think it'd be a great question to ask you. And the question is, Jeff, what breaks your heart in the world?
Oh man. Well, I think it's always around children. Um, and there's a lot of different aspects of that, but one one of the reasons that two of our children are adopted is because I just knew from coaching that kids kids need love and encouragement, and they need champions. And I that's what kind of set us down the path of adoption. But there's so many different aspects of that, Cody. I mean, like the I just don't think that kids can always defend themselves, and the deal with human trafficking. There's a lot of aspects. I mean, anything around children where a kid cannot protect themselves it crushes me, dude. Like it's the one thing that just I can't handle that. I can't handle that at all. And so I just try to support anything that protects kids.
I love it, man. That's a great answer. And I know that's a tough question to answer live like this, being put on spot, but I loved your answer. And in closing here, Jeff, if there was one last nugget that you could leave everyone with that's watched this, and you have free reign on this, we've talked about a lot of different things. What would that one nugget be that you would leave for everybody?
Well, I don't know what the one would be, so I'll give you a quick hitter on a couple different ones. Seek out awesome mentorship, no matter how old you are, and let the people around you who make you who you are, let them know how much you appreciate them. And when you were talking about investments before, it made me think of something from the Covey training also, where he talked about emotional deposits or withdrawals into your bank account, your emotional bank account. And that's really what your group is around, is like motivation. Everything is about positivity. It's about being around the right types of energy. Man, I did not understand, like, you have to take care of you, but not in an egotistical way. You have to take care of you so that you can go out and show up the best version of yourself for everyone else. And I didn't do that for a long time. And my business coach, Bill, taught me that. And I thought it sounded really egotistical, like I said. And then I just started thinking about it. And some of the best wisdom teachers out there have all shared similar teachings. I mean, Jesus tells us to go out and love our neighbors as ourselves. But if we don't even take good care of ourselves and love ourselves, how the heck are we going to go take care of our neighbors and love our neighbors in a way that we're supposed to? So, I mean, I would say those couple thoughts there are probably nutritious, and it's kind of how I try to live my life.
It's powerful, man. We've all heard you can't pour from an empty cup. So true, though. Usually the people that are doing the most to invest and make those emotional deposits in others, they're the ones, they're draining that. They're draining that emotional bank a lot by giving so much. And if you don't take care of yourself, you will never have the longevity to keep doing it for others. So I thought that was a great piece of advice. So Jeff, how can people find you? How can they connect with you?
So I always tell people, I don't have the most amazing Instagram account, just pictures of my family and some stuff like that. But I just be on all the different social medias. And the easiest way to connect with me is actually, you see my name up on the screen, Jeff Goering, Jeff Goering 360.com. jeffgoering360.com. That actually will take you to, it's best to do it off your phone, but it'll take you to every possible way you could contact me, and including my calendar. So like, don't everyone take pot shots at me right now, but like, that's the easiest way for you to connect with me on whatever channel is like the one that's your favorite. And I love meeting new people. It's what makes the variety is the spice of life, as they say. And I love meeting new people. That's 2020. People can say whatever they want to say about it. It's been one of my favorite times I've had in my life, because I got to meet some really awesome people. Cody, you and I didn't even know one another before this year, and it's been really quite an amazing year. And I just wish everybody that's on here and happens to hop on this, that you finish out the year strong, and that your upcoming 2021 is just absolutely fantastic.
Let's go. I love it, Jeff. I love it, Jeff. Well, guys, that concludes our show today with Mr. Jeff Goering, full of value. Hope you guys took some notes. Jeff, thank you so much for your time. I know your time is valuable. We appreciate all of the wisdom that you've shared with us today. For everybody that's watched this far, you are a special kind of person that is willing to sit down and take the wisdom to the end. I want to applaud you, and I want to honor you. And I want you to know that Motivation Everything appreciates you, that I appreciate you. And, I want to end on this. All the information in the world is out there to succeed. Everything that was said tonight has probably been said 100 times before, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. Information is great, guys, but if you don't go apply it, it means nothing. So I just want to encourage everybody that tunes in to this to take the information and the wisdom from other people. Success leaves clues. Guys like Jeff have run the race already. We can take the nuggets they drop from us. We can apply them to our own lives, and we can create massive change and success in our lives. So guys, next week, same time, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, I'll have another special guest on here, and I appreciate you guys and hope everybody has a wonderful night. We're out.